This is Mark Hill, the Traveling NP. The topic I want to cover today is one that I have dealt with numerous times during my experience with dealing with staffing companies. And I started this process probably October of last year in 2016. So it's been almost a year since I've been dealing with staffing companies. And that is what to do when you get lowball offers from staffing companies, and you're going to get a ton of them. And early on in your locums career, you're going to be tempted to take everything that comes down the pike because you're trying to find work and you're trying to stay busy, and there's really nothing wrong with that. And it's okay to take lowball offers if you're okay with it. After you've been in the business for any length of time, you will begin to realize that most companies are going to, especially when they realize that you're kind of new to the game, they're going to intentionally kind of lowball you, or hospitals are going to kind of lowball you, or clinics are going to kind of lowball you. And how to deal with that. Early on, I didn't really deal with it at all. I just kind of accepted assignments as they came, and I think I'm sure at this point I sold myself short on several occasions. And I don't really regret that from the standpoint that I was really trying to work my way into the business. It's not like I'm some kind of long-term veteran at this yet, because I'm not. I've only been doing it for about 7 months, I guess. 6 months, 7 months. But in that length of time, I have a lot of assignments, short-term assignments, and some medium-length assignments under my belt. And I've worked for several locums companies. And what I have found is, and I mentioned this in another video, is that once you get started, you'll find that finding work is not the problem. It's weeding through all the work that you'll be offered to figure out what's going to be the best fit for you. And if your motivation is destinations only, then you're not that concerned with how much you're getting paid anyway. So you may be okay with lowball offers as long as you get to go where you're wanting to go. But for me, as I've said before, is that it's kind of a two-pronged thing. I want to make a good living, and I want to go to some interesting places. But first and foremost, at this point, I want to make a good living until I get, all my debts paid off and get in a position where I don't have to worry so much about how much money I make. What I do now at this point with lowball offers is people contact me just about on a daily basis, and I get a lot of phone calls. I got one just today from a company that has called me numerous times trying to get me to do different assignments. And they called me wanting to get me to go do an ER assignment at an Indian Health Services ER, and the starting pay was $65 an hour for emergency work, and they wanted me to work 12-hour shifts, 14 on, 14 off. And that sounds like it may be pretty good, but the reality of it is that ERs, I pretty much have a rule. I don't work in ERs, especially busy ERs, and you'll figure out which ones are busy and which ones aren't. A real busy ER, I don't work in a busy ER for less than $80 an hour. And let me tell you why. First of all, the work is hard. You're going to be seeing a lot of patients. Oftentimes, as a nurse practitioner, you're going to be placed in a fast-track situation where they're wanting you to do numbers of patients, and get through people fast. They also require a lot of experience and certifications. And we have a saying in the South that they want a lot of sugar for a dime. And by that I mean that they want to get a highly trained professional person who can come in there and handle their clientele and handle their high-risk population, and they want to get them as cheap as possible. Well, let me tell you, if they hire a locums MD or a DO to come in there and do that, they're not going to get an MD or a DO for less than $150, $160, in some cases $175 an hour minimum. And those guys are going to be doing the same work you're going to be doing. Now, we can have a separate discussion about, what's your education worth to you, all those things. But what I'm simply telling you is that in these small ERs, those MDs, DOs, physicians are not going to be doing any different work than you are. You're doing the same work. You're billing for the same procedures. You're doing the same kinds of stuff. Why would I sell myself short working for $60, $65, $70 an hour when I know an MD is going to be making $150, $160 or more an hour? I'm not. So I pretty well have a rule at this point that I'm not taking less than $80 an hour, and that's the minimum. If I can negotiate for a higher price, I will. I talked to this lady for a few minutes, and she was asking me what my negotiated price would be, what I would need, and I just tell them what I want. I said, look, this is what I want an hour. If I can't get that, I can't get living stipend, if I can't get travel pay, then I'm just not interested. And I have that conversation numerous times a week with recruiters, and you know what? It is what it is. I don't have to accept every opportunity that comes down the pike now. After a few months, you won't either. You can pick and choose and start doing assignments based on what you want. If it's pay, then hold out for pay. Most of the time, you're going to find they're going to come back and say, okay, well, what do you need? So finally, when I ended up talking to this recruiter today, she basically said, okay, so you would accept the job for $80 an hour. I said I would consider accepting the job for $80 an hour. So she was going to present me over for $80 an hour. Now, do I expect to get $80 an hour in Indian Health Services ER? No. Do I expect that I'm going to take the job probably? No. Because I'm not going to get $80 an hour. And I'm not going to do it for less than $80 an hour. And we're talking about an Indian Health Services that takes months and months and months for credentialing. Now, if it works out to where they say, okay, well, we'll take the guy, and this is an Indian Health Services that I've worked in the area, so they're familiar with me. They know who I am. They know my CV is going to demonstrate that I've worked all around this Indian Health Services. So they're probably going to be interested, but I doubt they're going to be interested in $80 an hour. But if they're not, I'm not coming. So I've determined that the least I'm going to work for in an ER is $80 an hour. Now, I will take less for private practice, primary practice, family practice physicians. Just say no. Sometimes the best thing to do with recruiters is just say no. They're either going to come back with a better offer or they're going to move on to a different assignment. And there are plenty of assignments. They're everywhere. Get your foot in the door, work a few assignments, and then start picking and choosing. You don't have to take every assignment that comes down the pike. There's going to be other ones coming down the pike. When you get your name out there and people realize that you're working locum tenens, they're going to be coming out of the woodwork trying to recruit you because you make them money. So don't settle for the first thing that comes along. Sometimes it's not the best deal, and you can always go back. Just say, hey, I need to know all the details. Don't let these recruiters buffalo you into you presenting you to a position, and then you have to feel pressured into that position later on. Find out all the details up front. Find out what the pay is. Find out what the requirements are. Find out what the length of assignment is. Find out, a lot of things. Find out what the accommodations are. Find out what the travel reimbursement is. Find out the details before you let them present you to the client. That way, you're not going to feel pressured after they said, oh, we're interested in this guy, to say, no, the money's just not going to be there. Find out up front, what are they paying? If the money's not good and you don't feel good about it, you may sit there in the middle of that job, that assignment, and think, man, I could be making a lot better money somewhere else. So, don't be afraid to say no. That's my word for the day. This is Mark Hill, the Traveling NP. Until next time, have a great day.